Welcome back to After the Snap, and I'm your host, Tasha Pierce. And today, I'm going to wonder out loud what the hell is Bob Chapek thinking? Now, I know that maybe it was just last week that I said I'm hesitant to blame a lot of what's going on at Disney squarely on Bob Chapek. And I'm not reneging on that right now because more news has come out. Um, quite frankly, Bob Chapek might be what is about to bring down a titan in the movie industry, and I'm going to explain why. We're going to start with Shang Chi star Simu Liu. He felt some type of way, and he made it very known that he felt some type of way about comments that were made by Bob Chapek concerning the way that they're going to release Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings over on Disney. It's stating right here that Disney didn't call Shang-Chi an experiment, but Simu Liu has cause for frustration, and that is coming out of Forbes. Now, it's written by Scott Mendelson, also, by the way. Now, it's no secret that Disney's Bob Chapek would rather have released Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings as both a theatrical and premiere access title, even if the $30 police offering hasn't resulted in ginormous amounts of revenue alongside the theatrical box office. Chapek has been big on direct-to-consumer distribution. Moreover, it's a reasonable alternative strategy while COVID is still raging and most kids, including anyone under 12, remain unvaccinated. The Disney CEO remarked in a Thursday earnings call on Shang-Chi, "We think it's going to be an interesting experiment. It only has a 45-day window for us. The prospect of taking a Marvel title to the service after just 45 days would be an interesting data point." Now, that led to Shang-Chi's star blasting Chapek on Twitter, declaring that, well, we are not an experiment. We are the underdog, the underestimated. We are the ceiling breakers. We are the celebration of culture and joy that will persevere after an embattled year. We are the surprise. I'm fired the fuck up to make history on September 3rd. Join us. Now, strong words coming from Simu Liu, but also when you think about words, they matter. They absolutely matter. And while I am 100% sure that Bob Chapek has the intellect to helm a company as big and as endeared as Disney, I'm afraid that he doesn't have the people skills to do this. And by that I mean, even on the lowest rungs of management, in the lowest of positions of a manager at a McDonald's or Taco Bell, because I used to be a GM at a Taco Bell, you find that your words matter. And if my words matter when I'm talking to 10, 18-year-old kids, they matter that much more when you are on a stage as big as the one that Bob Chapek has. He needs to censor himself at some point. Somebody needs to save Bob Chapek from himself. You don't want to alienate them, period. Because if they don't put your movie on the screen in China, you can cancel the billion-dollar returns that we have grown so used to seeing from Marvel movies. But also, you have an audience right here made up of a ton of Asian American young folks, old folks, just folks alike. And what they want to see right now is Disney getting behind this Shang-Chi movie, marketing the hell out of it, and celebrating it for what it is. This is the entrance of an Asian American superhero in the Marvel universe. Remember how Black folks came out when Black Panther was announced and when it was released? Do you remember the cultural pride that was on display at every single screening? People were literally dressing in African garb and sitting in a movie theater, not at a Broadway show, in a movie theater, because they were just that happy to see not only representation, but a representation from a person who understands how important this was to the Black community. This is how the Asian community feels right now. Now, look, we can go into these whole divisive conversations about, well, the Asian community wasn't behind Black Panther. In fact, they were outspoken about how they felt like it was getting too much attention. Well, I'm saying I felt that way too when I wasn't represented on screen. How am I supposed to get so excited about this when you guys are not celebrating us? You can't tell the story of America without talking about Black people, period. But that's another conversation for another day. I'm just saying that I completely understand where Simu Liu is coming from. When you use a word like experiment, it's almost like you are undermining the effort that these people, this Asian cast, primarily Asian cast, you're undermining the effort that they put in to making this the best movie that they could make. Now, if we go to the movie and we see it and it's not good, that's one thing. But to call it an experiment, even though you weren't talking directly about the movie, you were talking about the way this movie is released, a word like experiment can be kind of hurtful. There had to have been a better way of presenting to your shareholders what you meant without using that word, because you sometimes have to slow down and think about how what you're saying is going to be received. And I'm afraid Bob Chapek just doesn't have that skill. And I'm saying that not to be a jerk about it, but because it's the truth. Bob Chapek used the word experiment when he was talking about the way that this movie is going to be released. He didn't use that word when he talked about Jungle Cruise. He didn't use that word when he talked about Black Widow. Of course, he did experiment there, but experiment without not paying Scarlett Johansson. But anywho, I'm saying that while I understood the what Bob Chapek meant when he said this is an interesting experiment, you left room for misinterpretation. There was room left for misinterpretation. When you're dealing with the media, conniving fucks that they are, maybe me included, a sound bite taken out of context can bring down a house. And the house of mouse is no different. So while his words may have been misinterpreted by Simu Liu, this word experiment, it's troubling to me, especially when we still have the story of Scarlett Johansson still going or moving around out there. And here's the latest on this. And then I talked about this in the live stream on Saturday. But Disney CEO Bob Chapek is doubling down on his film studio's decision to release Marvel's Black Widow in theaters and on Disney Plus at the same time. But I don't think that's the crux of this argument. The reason why I say it's not at the crux of the argument is Scarlett Johansson's team wanted to renegotiate a contract that included streaming revenue in her salary. So this is from Variety. Speaking on a Thursday earnings call with investors, Chapek grazed the company's ongoing salary drama with actor Scarlett Johansson. The on-screen superhero sued Disney last month, saying she was deprived of millions in compensation she would have earned if the film was given an exclusive theatrical run. Now, here he says, Bob Iger and I, along with the distribution team, determined this was the right strategy to enable us to reach the broadest possible audience. Chapek said this in his opening remarks, invoking his predecessor during a reverent speech about Disney's ongoing commitment to storytelling. So here, he made sure that he name dropped Bob Iger, saying that Bob Iger was 100% on board with the way that they distributed this movie. What is not saying to me is that anybody else was on board with how you handled not renegotiating with Scarlett Johansson, especially since it appears that he was able to do that with Dwayne Johnson. Let's see. It was a conflict that Disney is believed to have avoided with The Jungle Cruise, starred Dwayne Johnson, by changing his compensation structure when the film also bowed on the streaming service at the same time it debuted in theaters. We figured out ways to fairly compensate our talent so that no matter what the business model, everybody feels satisfied, Chapek said. But when? When did you do this modification of the payment structure, the compensation structure? Was it before or after Black Widow? Because hell yeah, I'd be happy too if you fixed shit before my payday. But what about the people who got paid before me? What about Scarlett Johansson, who for 10 years provided faithful service, including for upholding her end of the contract for Black Widow? So this, to me, the choice of words, the way you're saying things, the image that you think that you are portraying, Bob Chapek, people see right through that. We understand that, yes, you may have got things right with Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt by extension because you didn't want to fuck over Dwayne Johnson. And yes, we understand that you weren't referring to Simu Liu and Shang Chi as an experiment, but the choice of word still is a little bit questionable. I think that we need a different face for Disney. I don't think that Bob Chapek is the leader we need or deserve right now. Again, not questioning his intellect or his ability to do the job, but when your job deals with a lot with dealing with people, you have to be better. And Bob Chapek is demonstrating that he does not have the skill or capacity to communicate effectively to his talent, to the shareholders who might be okay. They might be okay with hearing the word experiment, but that is not the way that you refer to a title, Shang Chi, that regardless of it being Asian led, it's a Marvel movie. That's a payday, period. A Marvel movie is going to perform as well as any movie can in the middle of this pandemic. So if you have $100 million opening expectations, I'm gonna need you to scale things down because it's not going to be that. Not here. Not when we have now not just the Delta variant, we got the Lambda variant going around. Pretty soon it's like Omega Psi-Phi. How many variants do we need to have? But that's another conversation for another day. Bottom line to me, Bob Chapek lacks the ability to communicate effectively to the public and to his talent. And he lacks the compassion to understand how a person such as Scarlett Johansson has to feel knowing that they got shit right with Dwayne Johnson, but they couldn't do that with her. I'm getting off my soapbox. This ain't the last that you're going to hear me talk about this. I know just last week I said I'm sick of hearing it, but to be quite honest, it just keeps getting worse. It just keeps getting worse. And this person, this Bob Chapek, I don't have faith in him as a leader. I'm afraid for what's going to happen to the properties that I love that are under the Disney umbrella, because I feel like this is just, shit is just getting started. So anywho, tell me how you feel. What did you think about Bob Chapek's comments? What do you think about them being able to satisfy and satiate Dwayne Johnson, but they weren't able to do that very same thing with Scarlett Johansson? Let me know in the comments below. While you're down there, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and tell a friend, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.